Yeah, there are Friday night dance parties, and then there are Friday night locked on Scary Alvarez crossover show dance parties. Hey, Ryan, don't let me stop you there, man. I mean, I know you got that groove in you, and
Yeah.
you know how to kick it. Yeah. Next time I do one of my my plane rides on my G7 over to Ibiza to hang with Calvin Harris and Dave Jetta and the guys, give me a shout out. I'll bring you on the plane with me. I think you'd probably do well there.
Like as a passenger, or am I going to be working? Is that like a working trip for me?
Oh, you're gonna be working. Yeah.
Yeah. No worries.
Passenger. What are you talking about? Dude,
Yeah.
there's no, you're not you were like kind of like a walk on the trip, but that's okay. That's pretty cool too. You're just above the stage sweepers, but not quite as high as the roadies. So you're in there.
Then listen, from where I've started in life, moving on up. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. Well, anyone, or anyway, and anyone. Uh, Welcome to Scary Elvis podcast. I'm of course Scary Alvarez, your beloved host, Wine Island enjoyer, Sherry Wine Destroyer, Jake's grandpa, and Cindy's plus one when she'll have me. He's been a little bit irritated on my DJ stuff lately, but she's a forgiving woman and the love of my life. So we're going to be just fine. I know. Don't worry there, Ryan. We're a loving marriage, and she's awesome. She's my co-pilot in life. But anyway, we're here to talk about something else, not just me. I love talking about myself. You know that. Um, Wisconsin Badgers, Illinois, noon tip Saturday, big game. I don't think sharing anything that's exactly a secret there, but this is for a team that is really struggling right now in Greg Gard's Badgers. Uh, this is a mammoth, gigantic, immense game. Not only for the positioning themselves for March Madness, but for their heads, for the stuff between the ears. Would you agree?
Huge, huge game. Absolutely huge game. It's kind of I mentioned we were talking about a couple days ago. This feels like a fulcrum game to me, where this could really balance. If you get a win here, a good performance, this thing could go in a different direction. And if you lose here, this thing really starts spiraling because the one bastion for this team that they've been able to rely on is they played really well at home all year, even kind of in this stretch, right? The recent wins have been at home. The loss to Purdue, I thought, was a really strong effort, at least against a really good team. So at least you have that in your back pocket. And if you come out and Illinois trounces you, or you don't play well, you don't even have that anymore. I think the confidence gets shaken. I think this is a huge game. This might be. It's so easy to say this is the biggest game of the season. The next game is always kind of the biggest game of the season to some degree, but this game's enormous, I think, for this team psyche.
I think it is too. And by the way, I didn't introduce you because you need no introduction. Of course, Lockdown Badgers, Ryan Herrings is here with us tonight. Um, and I know it's always your pleasure. It's good to have you though.
No, it's great.
Um, let's pretend there were no uh, slumps or issues or people swirling the fire guard thing and all this stuff going. This was just Badgers are having a good season. They're teasing second, third place. No big losing streaks. They've been good all year. Beating Illinois would be important even in that scenario because that is one team in the Big Ten that they have not been able to crack
Mhm.
the last few years. They've kind of owned us. I mean, it's just a fact. Whether it's matchups, whether it's between the ears, maybe it's a little bit of both. Um, they just have been in every way, shape, or form. Even with some of those good teams we had, we couldn't solve them. And so I think adding on all this other stuff and this noise going on that makes it even more important just adds to the importance of this game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think historically, right, they kind of present some issues that Greg Gard has a type, right? We all have types. Greg Gard has a type of team that he generally has, and that team does generally struggle with bigger physical post players, more athletic wings. You look back at Illinois' roster. I mean, that's what they've done a lot of. So those teams, I think it's just there is such a thing as certain teams just give you bad matchups, right? And I think Illinois during these last stretch of time, because those are some of the issues Greg Gard has had recruiting to, is a team that gives us matchup problems. And by the way, those matchup problems are still going to be there Saturday. Like those athletic wings that Illinois typically has, they still have them. The names change, but kind of the prototype there hasn't really. So, yeah, I think
Yep.
historically they give Wisconsin some issue just because we struggle athletically against teams like that, and they seem to have those dudes in spades.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Well, I see on your name tag there, you have Stephen Crowell defender. What I want to see is Stephen Crowell, comma defender. I think that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I don't want to get big Steve. I don't like getting personal. Steve is a good kid. He's actually a very quietly fierce competitor, and I think there's no one in the world uh, that wants to step his play up more than Steve himself. I'm not sure exactly what has been going on there, but for Wisconsin to be able to beat Illinois on Saturday, he's going to have to be a big part of that solution. Offense would be great, but the defense especially. He just has to. He has to. They can't get that inside stuff. It's a fact. We have to do. We have to. I'd say own the lane might be a little bit of a big ask, but we need to at least hold our own in the lane. And Steve Crowell is a big part of that.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And listen, the Indiana game. So I'd put Stephen Carl defender on here because people just continually tell me I'm too high on him. And really, the truth is, it's not that I'm so high on Stephen Carl. It's that I'm pushing back against the narrative that he's the problem, right? Even on some of the paint issues, and you're totally right. Like we have to play in the paint better. And by the way, if anyone takes umbrage to the fact that I use we, I'm a fan that says we. It just is what it is. I had somebody really come after me about this. He's like, "You don't play." I'm like, "Listen, I'm a Badger fan. I use we. It is what it is."
Someone really got mad at you for
So,
saying
like,
we.
really frustrated with me. Multiple text messages and a DM. Um, but
Wow,
listen,
they probably they love me calling myself Scary Alvarez. Then
like
really,
I always feel like, man, and this is a bit of a side street, but like this is a community. We are Badger fans. Like this, we are part of this program's ecosystem. That's why I say we. If someone doesn't like, that's fine. But like to me, it's not a big deal either way. But the paint thing that we're talking about with Crowell, like he's a huge part of that. But our guards also need to do a better job of keeping guys out of the paint. So, like, there's elements here that I think Crowell gets blamed for because ultimately at the end of the play, what do you see? You see a guy in the paint and Crowell not able to defend it. But what you don't see 5 seconds before necessarily is Chucky Hepburn not getting over a screen and then Crowell getting put in no man's land, or
yeah,
AJ Storr getting beat on the perimeter, and then Crowell has to rotate over. They pass it to the guy Crowell rotated from. That guy dunks, so he gets a dunk. And I was like, "Where's Stephen Crowell?" I'm like, "Well, the perimeter defense is also a huge problem here, and those two things go together, and they've both been bad. Crowell's a part of that, but our guys got to keep people out of the paint on the perimeter, and we've struggled with that all year."
yeah. I want to be clear here, and those are great points, Ryan. The defense that Wisconsin is playing has not been good. It's not been Badger defense, even with the built-in Weller offensive efficiency has gone up a little bit, so we can be a little more lax on. I think we all kind of accepted that Faustian bargain early in the season, but not like this. So, Steve, well, I mentioned that there could be ways that Crawl could be better. Your points are well taken. That has not been, by and large, a great defensive team effort for most of the second half of the season. It's been really lacking. And, Indiana's shooting 63, 64% for a game. A really mediocre, frankly, mediocre is probably a compliment. It's probably too kind by half. That's a bad team, not a very well coached team. But to just have them absolutely get anything they wanted to defensively was incredibly disappointing. And, one thing that some fans may casually have missed is Wisconsin actually had a lot of statistics that if you just looked at them in isolation, you'd be like, oh, they won that game. Just the stuff they did. I mean, it was just, the 3-point shooting wasn't great, but like there was a lot of stuff they did really, really well. And it's just that loss rankled me almost as much as the Michigan loss, but I just feel like we left another one on the court we should have won. There I go. I'm on the team. Tell your
Well,
guy to send me a text message to 1-900. I don't give a shit.
he'll probably send it to me. He'll probably complain about me again, man. This dude doesn't like me
You
anyway.
want to give names, or I'm happy to
No,
absorb
'cause
some of that. He's
I'm
got
never.
your text number, man. How does he got your digits, bro?
Oh, did I say? I meant DM, like on Twitter, like
Oh,
my DM.
GM. Okay.
Like
We'll just
so.
block him. Block him.
Yeah, I don't block anybody unless they get like really disrespectful. I have had to block a couple people, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I'll say this: I just move on. I'm sure you got a bunch of people that like you just got to move on and not let it bother you. Because I feel like if you start blocking people, then you let it bother you. I don't know. Maybe I'm looked at that the wrong way.
I don't know. I sometimes let stuff bother me because it's kind of fun for me. I like that combative stuff a little more than you do.
Yeah.
But the days of being able to just DM anyone on Twitter is changed a lot. So that's cleared out a lot of a lot of my stuff I used to have to deal with. Well, anyway, let's kind of unpack. We'll get into the game stuff, but let's. This is kind of something that's been in the background of the last week or so. And I want to deal with it because it's sort of the elephant in the room. And I think you and I are going to be like minded on this. But you're hearing people talking about firing Greg Gard. This is not something that's new. We kind of joke about, fire Gard as this, kind of code word for dipshits who say things like that. But we're getting to a point now. I want to be clear here where there are people who are like Dylan Graff and the people who I respect greatly, who are good basketball minds. These are not fly off the handle types who are not such. They're not. I want to be clear. Dylan's not saying fire Gard, but you're having a little bit closer analysis and a little bit more pointed criticism from some of these people who are generally very calm and very reasoned Badger commenters that I have not seen quite to this level that I can recall. And I'm not trying to say right, wrong, or indifferent, but you know, taking that out of it, there are a lot of people who think of themselves as real, legitimate Badger fans who are without a moment's hesitation saying, "We have to fire Gard. We can do it
Mhm.
right now. Let's do this." I had someone in a thread say they want Wisconsin to lose out so Greg Gard gets fired. I took great exception to that. That's to me that's insanity. No, no, this isn't like an NFL. You're not tanking for LeBron James or something. I mean, this is insane. But what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I know you don't want Gard fired right now, but like, when is that conversation, or if that conversation happens, what does it look like?
Yeah, like that's the $1,000,000 question, right? Here's where I'm at. Like, I actually think that this conversation is becoming kind of a fair conversation. I am not in this the range of guard needs to go, needs to be fired. Let's be super clear. Like everybody talks about how March matters. We haven't even seen March. You got to at least see how the season ends and see what happens. What if he makes it to the Sweet 16? Then all this fire gets put out, right? So I'm very much in. Listen, he's got to finish the season. Let's see what happens. But I got to be honest, man. There's issues here that are starting to frustrate me a little bit more. I think the lack of adjustments in game, that's something that gets talked about a lot, right? Like it's an easy thing to say, but it is pretty glaring at times. It feels like Mike Woodson outcoached Greg Gard, which is crazy because Mike Woodson is a captain going down on a ship, right?
Yeah,
You simply cannot give up a pick and roll. That's one of the simpler actions in basketball again and again and again, and let a big man shoot 11 to 12 and not make some type of adjustment, whether it's going under the screen because Indiana's not looking to shoot it, whether it's blitzing the pick and roll, which means sending both guys to him one play. That's really frustrating. I was pulling my hair out on that. So I think
yeah,
some of those pointed criticisms are super valid. What I would say and what I continue to push back a little bit on last year, Greg Gard, we went to the NIT. Everybody knows what happened last year. Greg Gard came back and we said we need to see improvement. Well, this team has improved, right? This team is going to definitely be in the dance. They're going to solidly be in there. I think he showed that he could go get an athletic guy in the portal. So if you look at progression from last year to this year, this team has gotten better. That was the goal, Greg Gard. And then I think there needs to be more progression, but he's taken a step up. And if in that sense, I feel like he's made progress. And it's hard to say, all right, well, you made progress. The team's better. You got an athletic wing, and you're still fired. Well, what did he need to do this year then? Would be my question to not be fired. Did he need to finish in the top 15? Did he need a top 3 seed? Because those are really hard things to do. And if that's the standard by which you're judging him, then a lot of coaches would get fired. So that's where I push back on people. This team's gotten better. Greg Gard has done some of the things we had hoped he would do. We're in a bit of a slide, but we do absolutely need to see how this season ends. And that's I don't think to me that's not even debatable.
agreed. I think that's a floor for how we handle this. But as I've said, McIntosh is a little. He does things a little differently than I did. Um, I don't know what his patient is. I don't know if Mac has some great love of let's say a Big 12 coach in Ames. I'm just we don't know there are X factors that we don't know here. But I'd say using the traditional logic that we have for the entire history of the Wisconsin basketball program, Guard's not in the chopping block right now. I think we want to see how it finishes. I think there's a lot of scenarios this could go, and again, I always have to preface this by saying I'm not comparing Bo Ryan to Greg Gard. Bo Ryan is a Hall of Fame or soon to be Hall of Fame coach. it's unfair to Greg Gard, not to Bo Ryan, to make that comparison. Okay. That said, under traditional notions of what a successful college basketball coach looks like in a non-blue blood program, Greg Gard has been successful. I don't know. I mean, I don't tell you he has. The numbers are there. Does that mean he's gonna make you know Badger Dad 8749364 on Twitter? Get a chub every game. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't. It doesn't. I could have put it more lightly than that, but
Work.
he's not gonna. Yeah, he's not that. No, have there been mistakes? Yes, and I feel like I'm constantly that voice on Twitter and other places where I'm trying to make the argument for God. This is still, however you feel about him. This is a guy who won 2 of the last 4 Big Ten Coach of the Years. This is a guy who won 2 Big Ten titles in 4. This is a guy who had his probably most March ready team of all time get COVIDed out of the tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, Chucky Hepburn doesn't have his ankle messed up in 22. Who knows? Johnny Davis is playing 70% on his leg.
That
I
listen,
know those are things. Have a deeper team. Have a deeper team. But
yeah, sorry,
you
I'm
know,
not to interrupt you, but that team was. I think that team was poised to make a run. To your point, the Davis Hepburn team, and
yeah,
Davis gets hurt. Hepburn blows out his ankle. They would have beaten Iowa State. They darn near beat him anyway.
yeah.
So I'm right there with you on that.
So it's easy to make these arguments that I'm making, but if you have a time span of 9 and then next year it'll be 10 years, eventually there just has to be those results. I mean, so as much so I can defend it as much as I can, but I do agree with your point that there's a lot of basketball to go. So hopefully a lot for the Badgers this year. I guess there could be potentially only 4 or 5 more games, but let's hope it's a longer run than that. But I do agree that if Wisconsin can right the ship, and they certainly have the talent to do so, and they have a coach who can get it done, and they get to that second weekend in March, this was a highly successful season. If they, I mean, it's impossible to argue with that. Now, does that mean people aren't going to still want to fire Guard? There still will be people who will do it. How like that 30% of the country that thinks a certain thing, you're going to have a certain percentage of the fan base, no matter what Greg Gard does, they're going to hate him. I think they've just made that decision. So that's where we are.
Let me ask you this, because this we had similar discussions with Chris, right? And I don't think there's a perfect. I don't think the two are on a perfect parallel, perfect analogy. But what I remember about the Chris discussions when we were doing it, like it just got so tiring. And I guess I hate feeling like I'm constantly Greg Gard's public defender because he doesn't need me to do that for starters. But like it just feels like we're constantly going back and forth over this fence, right? We win a game and you see other things on Twitter, rough day for the Guard haters. You lose a game and the post-game show is just me responding to 30 people saying fire Guard. And I want to be super clear. Like, I think those are fair perspectives. Like, I'm not saying my perspective is any more right than anyone else's. This conversation gets so draining. And what it goes back to, in my opinion, is Badger fans want somebody they can believe in. And Guard is losing that belief, right?
Yeah.
Fair or not, he's losing that belief. And that's a hard thing to come back from.
It's a hard thing to come back from, and it's also, I won't say it's baked into this, but he took over for the 2 most successful seasons since 1941 in the program's history. Well, yikes! I mean, I don't feel sorry for him. He knew he was getting into, and he certainly benefited from some of Bo's, the talent that they both brought it in. His Guard was a chief recruiter, but I mean, that's a tough act to follow. But Ryan, I know you've seen this. Let's go back to Bo Ryan's first 12 years in Madison. Again, better than Guard's, steadier than Guard. Didn't have 2 losing seasons. Didn't miss the tournament. But in the spring of 2013 and going into the 13-14 season, and when they had that big losing streak in the 14 season in January, there were all kinds of fire Bo people in this. I mean, it was a real thing. He can't win the big one. He cannot get the athletes needed to compete with the top teams. He's never going to get us past. He was lucky to make the Elite Eight one time. He's a Sweet 16 is his cap. So I guess in some sense we're complaining about the Sweet 16 rather than not getting the Sweet 16. But the same thing was, there was a huge, and Twitter wasn't as big then, and social media wasn't as big, and everyone didn't have a podcast. But I remember, and the real ones, I'm not sure, if this was your recollection, but there was a tremendous amount of anti-Bo Ryan venom around that time because they're like, this guy's had over a decade, and look what he's done. I mean, Guard is in his ninth year. You know what I mean? He hasn't even had as much time as Bo has, and so I'm just that really probably is neither here nor there with what's going on with Greg Gard right now. I just want to remember or remind Badger fans the patience they showed with this now Hall of Fame coach. It's an interesting contrast. I don't even know what point I'm making with that. It's just I think people have, and this makes the pressure on Guard even higher. A little bit of a different view of Bo Ryan's entire tenure than it was in the moment as it was happening because it ended so great. Is
Yeah,
that
no,
fair?
I think it's a good perspective. Like, I mean, listen, success breeds spoiled fans. Like that's just the truth of it. And that's not a bad thing. Like success also creates high standards, and we should have high standards at Wisconsin. Um I so I don't remember, and again, I certainly I'm much more in the weeds now doing what I do, right, than I was in 2013. But I definitely remember people being frustrated with Bo. I don't remember this level of vitriol, right?
Oh
And
no, it wasn't. It wasn't this level. It
yeah,
wasn't this level.
and I feel like as much as people got frustrated at times with Bo, like he was just so consistently good. Like you never had a stretch where you were worried if you were making the NIT. And again, he's a Hall of Fame coach for a reason, right? Like there's not many people in many places doing that. And I wanted to go back to a point you made earlier and just kind of create the counterpoint to it. Greg Gard took over something that is really tough to do, right? Replace a legend. But there's also a lot of coaches out there that are like, sign me up for taking over Wisconsin, right? Like, let me do that. Instead, other coaches are taking over moribund programs, that have won 5 games in the last 10 years.
Right.
So, yes, Greg Gard took over a tough spot. Greg Gard also took over a pretty darn good program, right? And he's took over a program with knowing what that standard was. Is that fair or not? That's debatable, but that is what it is as well. And there's a lot of coaches that would have liked to have taken over a program that had been at that level.
Right.
So I think that's fair to point out as well.
Yeah, yeah. Again, those are good points, and I wasn't comparing the job that Ryan did with the job that Guard has done. Just saying that there was a certain level of dissatisfaction, although it was a quieter time. Not everyone had the social media voice at the time, but there was and the olds will remember this. There was it wasn't like an outlier. There was an undercurrent of Bo can never get us to the promised land. That was a real thing around 2011, 2012, and when we lost that Mississippi game
I
in
remember
in
that game.
13.
Oh,
I believe we were a 5 seed and they were 12, or we were a 4, they were 13. They had that goofball on their team. I forget his name.
the shooter, yeah, and
yeah,
it
he
was
was a real, yeah, interesting kid. But anyway, so
Marshall
let's turn
Henry.
to Marshall Henderson. Marshall Henderson. Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. It's fine. I mean, I will say the way he played against us in that game, it was hard to fault him for talking shit because he was really good in that game.
Yeah, yeah.
But also he was also kind of a turd burglar. But anyway, let's turn it. I want to get you out of here before midnight. Let's turn this to. I guess it'll probably be today's game when this is airing. Gigantic mammoth game in Madison against Illinois. Second place team in the Big Ten, getting a lot of hype from around the country, especially on the heels of their scoring performances. Their offense is really clicking right now. Very talented team, powerful front line, good shooters. Uh, you know, maybe there's a felon in there somewhere, but we're not going to worry about that right now. How are you feeling about this game tomorrow?
I just don't know. You know what it is, man? I don't have a good feel for this team. Like I don't have a good feel for what Badgers team is going to show up, and that frustrates me. So I don't know. I really don't. I'm more confident about this game than I think 90% of Badger fans are. Like, listen, this team has played really well at home, right? Like they've lost to Purdue, Tennessee. Like, I mean, they played really well at home. Every player outside of AJ Storr that gets regular minutes shoots much better, or at least better to much better at home for the Badgers. So this is a kind of a sample size at this point. This team has performed much better in the Kohl Center than on the road. I'm going to lean into that. Um, Still, I don't think we're going to be able to guard them. Right? We're not going to be able to guard Illinois. They're going to score because we haven't been able to guard a lot of teams recently, and Illinois is more skilled and more athletic than most of the teams we played. They can shoot the ball. I think one of the keys is, and we talked about this a little before the show, that Illinois Minnesota game where, I mean, Illinois put up over 100, but they gave up 96. Illinois really wants to. They really want to get up and down the court. They really want to get in transition. Wisconsin does a pretty good job of limiting possessions. We still play at a pretty slow pace. I think if we can kind of contain the tempo, we're going to win in Madison. I think if it becomes kind of like that Arizona game where Illinois is getting runouts, where they are playing fast, the tempo on both sides increases. I think Illinois probably wins by 10 if we let the tempo get away from us. But I think if we play with our tempo at home, I have the Badgers winning. I don't even think it's that crazy. Like, that's not a Badger win over Illinois in the Kohl Center isn't going to raise national eyebrows. Like, Badger fans will think it's crazy, but that's not going to be seen as a massive upset.
No, I agree, and I guess I sort of teased my thoughts on this, and again, this is a dangerous game. Illinois is a very good team, well coached.
Mhm.
Uh, Wisconsin's winning this game tomorrow. I'm
Let's
calling
go.
it. Yeah, this is my first prediction since I picked us to beat Ohio State in football.
Oh,
So
I was
gonna
on
keep.
that show.
Yeah, you were. This is it. So let's hope this is sort of reverse bookending,
Yeah.
and I was wrong about that one, but then I get some redemption here. But in order to do this, I agree with you. There is going to be a tempo element for the Badgers. They're not going to stop them, but they're going to have to slow them down. And we are just going to have to make our 3-point shots tomorrow. It's as simple. I mean, we're not going to shoot 65%, but we can't do one of those like 5 for 25 games. It's just not gonna. It ain't gonna work. So, uh, I think we're due for one. I really do. Despite the fact that we've not been playing well, and maybe some of the defense has been lax, and we're our head spinning a little bit. Wisconsin is due for a good game, and even the wins we've had over Ohio State and Maryland, those were did enough to win kind of games. Those weren't dominating performances. Although we did play Ohio State just as they're about to, start playing some really good ball this year. I mean, Ohio State's a tough out right now, and we took care of them. Minnesota became a very tough out. We played them up in Minneapolis. Since then, we took care of them. This team has been able to do some stuff, but yeah, they're gonna win tomorrow, Ryan. I'm calling it. The Badgers are gonna win, and I hesitate to go beyond that. What it means, I know we then get I think a tricky matchup kind of Rutgers team as well. I mean, they're not as good as Illinois, but they present some of the same problems
Hmm.
for Wisconsin defensively that Illinois does, athletically, size wise. But knock those two out, and then head down to West Lafayette where no one's expecting anything, and just play free. And if you lose that one, you lose it. If you don't, you almost certainly have a double bye booked in the Big Ten tournament anyway by then. So let's do it, man. Let's get these 2 wins in a row, starting with Illinois tomorrow. Let's take care of business.
Dude, this game is so big. I'll tell you this too. If you beat Illinois, and I'm not putting any carts before any horses, like, you got to beat Illinois for this scenario to kind of play out, and that's far from a given. Um, but if you beat Illinois, I think you probably do beat Rutgers, and then Purdue's not going to care as much about that last game probably as Wisconsin does. Purdue's going to have
Yeah,
things sewn up. They're not going to need it. I'm just saying. I mean, Badger fans are already going to be like, "Oh, Ryan, being like." I'm just telling you, Purdue's not going to give a. Can we swear on this show? I don't remember.
yeah.
Yeah, Purdue's not going to give
No,
a.
no, I don't want Ryan. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't want any of that ridiculous shit on my show. So no, you cannot swear.
I have to hold it in on my. I honestly, I mostly have. I used to be. I mean, I used to be in the Navy. I used to swear all the time. I've mostly removed it from my vernacular, but there's times I still let it go. But Purdue's not going to give a shit about that game.
Yeah,
Not really, right? They're going to have everything sewn up. It's not going to, in the big picture, it's not really going to matter. I don't know. I could see a scenario where they win two and then they give Purdue a tough game on the road. Whereas I think most Badger fans think Illinois is going to pump us. Maybe we'll squeak by Rutgers, and then Purdue is going to murder us. And there's a
yeah.
scenario where that's flip flop, where we go 2-1 and we have a tough, like a close game on the road to Purdue to wrap it up. And then, by the way, then I'm telling you, we're going to feel. You do that, you're going to feel much better heading into the Big Ten tournament and into March. You're going to have some momentum,
It's
and you might be in a decent spot.
it's everything. I hate to put pressure on a team, and again, they can still do something if they lose to. It's not the end of the season, but we're a couple of adults in this room right now. If they lose this game, I'm telling you that can they dig out of that and find meaning? I don't know, maybe, but it's like your time to click keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter and less likely. But there are stranger things than teams who are slumping in the regular season, and then they somehow turn it on in the tournament, conference tournament. Maybe they make a run, win a couple games there. Who knows? So I'm not being bleak about it. But that said, tomorrow it's just a massive game. It's just I
Mhm.
you know, and I know I'm glad I'm sure Greg Gard will watch this and he'll be cued into the fact that it's a massive game because he hears us saying it. So hopefully that'll turn it on to him.
Yeah, he'll probably put some stuff in based on our suggestions and comments. Like I'm pretty excited to see what adjustments he's made based off this podcast.
What I want to do is I want Terrence Shannon to just lay a complete
That would be
shit
great.
show egg tomorrow and go like 2 of 19 shooting and just get benched because that guy. But
And
anyway,
that's where our
yeah,
fan section needs to come in too. Like, not that he
yep,
hasn't already had some of that in some roadies, but like, yeah,
he
let's get the
deserves
fans
it.
juice. Yeah.
He
I
deserves it.
I do want to ask one more question on this. We were talking about this before the show. The line on this, I think the line on this tells you the path for Wisconsin to win. The over under is 154.5. That over under feels like people like Vegas, the odds makers are expecting Wisconsin to keep the tempo down. I'm just saying, like, if that's where this score ends up, I feel pretty good for Wisconsin.
Agreed. And I can tell you if one of the teams or more, well, one or more of the teams crosses 100 points in this game, Wisconsin's not going to win it. So
Yeah, I agree.
I feel pretty confident in that. So let's just keep it in the 80s. Let's keep it in this, or 70s if necessary. But well, what a big game. But anyway, Badgers. The headline is the Badgers are going to beat Illinois tomorrow. The Illini, and it's going to feel good. It's not a court stormer though. I don't think it is. I think I'm not. I love court storming. You see me. No one's really getting. What a brave job by Kyle Filipowski. It's almost like Willis Reed. The fact that he was completely uninjured after having a high ankle sprain when he ran into that when he plowed himself into that person. But
He
I
survived,
don't
right?
know.
I thought he
What's that?
died. Like, he survived, right? Like,
He
he's
survived. He's
pulled
very
through.
brave. Yeah, he's very brave.
Good
That's
man.
another show. That's another show. But if Wisconsin wins and or when Wisconsin wins, and I think it can still be a win without storming the court. I mean, if you get like a last second three to win or something, just get the emotion of fans is great. But like, this is a really good team. But I will say though, the Chucky special game over Purdue, I wouldn't trade the court storm on that for anything. That was such a wonderful moment to see the fans interacting with the players in this organic, feel good Big Ten title moment that Nebraska fucking ruined the next week. But anyway, it's fine. It's fine. All right. Well,
Uh,
anyway, thanks for hopping on. This was a good one. I think we got our feelings out there a little bit. It's always good to have you on the podcast. And whether we air this tonight or air this tomorrow, we'll let you know. But let's get that dub for the boys tomorrow or today, whenever you're watching this.
on Wisconsin.
Let's do it.